Good morning and welcome to Morning Movie News. Now, as you might have been seeing in the headlines, the Fast 7 cast continues to expand. Not only has Jason Statham been added as the new villain, as well as Tony Jaa in a role yet to be specified, but just a few weeks ago it was announced that Kurt Russell will be joining the cast, I think also as another villain. And then yesterday it was announced that Djimon Hounsou, most notable I think for appearing opposite Leonardo DiCaprio in The Blood Diamond, will also be joining the cast. And what I find fascinating about this is that James Wan, as he takes over the franchise, seems to be skewing it a little bit older. I feel these casting choices almost have an Expendables vibe to them. I think a little bit more respectable than the Expendables. Well, I don't know if respectable is the right word. Maybe a little more high-end. I think that the Expendables cast actors who, are a little bit past their prime, well as, Kurt Russell. That's why I think Kurt Russell is the closest to that. But Djimon Hounsou is, I think, a good actor, but, he just never quite caught on. So I think that maybe it's partially to get a wider demographic, but of course they must be pulling in a lot of people already to be getting the kinds of numbers that this franchise pulls in. Fast 6 made almost $800 million. But the other thing they might be doing is they might be trying to balance out the cast, and that Jason Statham seems a lot older than the rest of the Fast and Furious cast. So instead of making him look like he's picking out a bunch of kids, maybe they want to skew it a little bit in his direction so that it seems more like a mixed bag. So I'm just wondering, do you think this is a good direction for the franchise to go in? Because I think for one of the things that Fast 6 has always been notable for, besides its diversity both in gender and race, as I've brought up numerous times, but I also think it's played young. It's been a youthful franchise. Maybe, I think it's never skewed. I think Vin Diesel obviously is older than I think he appears, but I think it's skewed 20s, 30s, but it obviously has a broad appeal, as I already said. But so what do you think of adding these older actors? Do you think that it keeps with the franchise? Do you think this is an exciting new direction to go in? Or do you think it starts to encroach a little bit in Expendables territory? Because, it's a delicate, any franchise is a delicate recipe. Or equation, I guess, equation is a cooler word for the Fast and Furious franchise than recipe. Vin Diesel's like, I'm not cooking here. So I think, although I get the idea Vin Diesel would probably enjoy cooking. But anyway, I'm not quite sure how I feel about it, but I do trust James Wan, and Vin Diesel is producing this, although I think he went a little off course with Riddick. But Fast 7 I'm very excited about. But I want to know what you think of these casting choices. The only one I guess that really gives me pause is Kurt Russell. Again, very Expendables-y. All right, so that's the first story of the day. The second story of the day is a Loki movie. Numerous people have been, apparently there's another petition. People are really into these petitions. Basically, you go to change.org and you can start a petition and people can sign it electronically. It got a lot of attention when Ben Affleck was cast as Batman, when tens of thousands of people signed a petition to get rid of him. Obviously, it did not work. And now there's a big petition going around to give Loki his own movie because, as we've been told by Tom Hiddleston himself, Loki will be taking a bit of a break after Thor 2: The Dark World. So they can focus on a new villain. Joss Whedon has said Loki can't be the only villain in the Marvel Universe as much as you guys would like that. Do I think a Loki movie would do well? I don't know. I really enjoy the Loki comic book, but I really started to like it when they kind of de-aged him and a little bit of a try to get to move in on the Damian Wayne property. But basically in the comics right now, Loki is like a tween. And it's very well written by Kieran Gillen. He does a great job with the voice of that character. And they actually gave Loki a really cool girlfriend named Leia. Great book. Go back and look it up. It's called Journey into Mystery, and it's moved in now into Young Avengers, where Leia just showed up, so I'm very excited. But anyway, I feel a Loki movie is tough. You don't want to risk overexposure with the character. Tom Hiddleston's very busy. I believe he just got picked up to do the new Crimson Peak Guillermo del Toro film because when Benedict Cumberbatch dropped out. And I think it's funny to swap those two for each other because they do have a similar vibe, Hiddleston and Cumberbatch. And actually they were in a movie together, War Horse, where they were both soldiers on the same team. And actually, it's funny, if you see War Horse, Tom Hiddleston, I think, did a better job than Benedict Cumberbatch there. There's a really touching moment. I don't want to give it away. And it's a split second, and they're riding into battle, and Tom Hiddleston on the horse. And I think Tom Hiddleston sells that moment emotionally so well. It hits you right. It's an emotional gut punch. So I think Tom Hiddleston's wonderful. I'd like to see him maybe get the chance to move beyond Loki. But as I've talked about before on this show, Tom Hiddleston is obviously a company man. He's a team player. He showed up at Comic-Con in costume and did a wonderful job this year, winning everybody over as Loki. So I think if Disney said they wanted to make a Loki movie, Tom Hiddleston would definitely do it. But you know what? I feel give the guy a little bit of a breather. Have Ultron come in, maybe let people realize how much they miss Loki, and then have him come back for Marvel Phase 3. There's been talk about maybe doing Doctor Strange, of course Scarlet Witch, maybe moving into the more magical area of the Marvel Universe, and of course that would definitely include Loki. So I think let's just get excited for him in Thor 2. Marvel wouldn't make a decision about a Loki movie until they see how Thor 2 does. But as I reported earlier this year, I think about a month or so ago, they have been adding more Loki consistently. So I guess in some ways, Thor 2 might be your Loki movie because they just keep adding more and more of him because they realize how popular the character is. Almost to the point where I don't know if you could make a Thor movie without Loki. So that's pretty fascinating. So that's the second story of the day. The third is that Michelle Pfeiffer has been promoting The Family, which opens tomorrow here in the United States. That's her Robert De Niro mob movie, undercover, witness protection program in France. And she's been saying, I really would love to do an action movie. I feel I haven't made a straight action film, and I think I would really like to do that. And I was like, why not Michelle Pfeiffer? And it reminded me that Michelle Pfeiffer, I don't think gets the credit she deserves for being such a wonderful actress. I think that a lot of times she gets kind of lumped in with Kim Basinger and, that kind of the I don't know how you would say it, maybe the sex pots of her generation. But I think she was a lot more than that. I mean, Kim Basinger did a good job in the first Batman. She was pretty good Vicky Vale. But I think that Michelle Pfeiffer was in a number of good films, and she's a really good actress. And, the reason I bring up comic book movies, though, is because she kind of did an action role already as Catwoman in Tim Burton's Batman Returns, and she wasn't even supposed to get that role. It was supposed to be Annette Bening's, but Annette Bening's got pregnant off of Bugsy with Warren Benning. Not Warren Benning. Poor Warren Beatty. He's like, I'm not Mr. Benning. Although these days, I think to some degree he is. But so I think that Michelle Pfeiffer did such a great job with that role, which was a very sexy role, but it had also a strong feminist bent, and Michelle Pfeiffer balanced it so beautifully because both men and women like her in the role, which is hard to do when you're playing a sexy character to get women to really like you, and when you're playing a feminist character to get men to still really like your character. And she was just brilliant in that film. I feel bad to this day they didn't make a Catwoman standalone picture like they planned. Although I heard some rumors about she would go to it was written by the same guy, Daniel Waters, who wrote the script for Batman Returns, and he's doing the new Vampire Academy movie, but apparently he talked about her going, I trust Daniel Waters because he did such a good job with the script for Batman Returns, but it talks about her going to another city and a whole bunch of weird stuff that I was kind of like, this doesn't sound so good. I don't know if I would have greenlit this either. But I just really like Michelle Pfeiffer. I think she's a wonderful actress. I think people, like a lot of male actors like Matthew McConaughey complain that no one sees past their looks. I think Michelle Pfeiffer has the same problem as a female actress. And Matthew McConaughey has been able to turn that around. Kudos for him. And I feel bad that Michelle Pfeiffer has never really been able to do that on her end. So why not give her an action movie? Would you like to see Michelle Pfeiffer in an action movie? Write your thoughts down below. Also, viewer question of the day. It's from T-Man Christian, whose name is Tani Sequoia. Sorry, it's hard to pronounce names sometimes here. And he or she says, my question is, why don't superhero films ever get nominated for Best Picture at the Oscars? Well, the Oscars they're very political, as I often mention on this show. But they're supposed to reward films for being at the pinnacle of their craft. Same goes with the acting and the different categories like directing and screenwriting. It's supposed to really award people who show above and beyond artistic ability and effort. And that's why I think The Dark Knight should have been nominated. I feel, and also a lot of people felt that way. And famously, that snub is what inspired the Academy to go to 10 picture nominations. Now it's a more complicated rule, but to go from 5 to 10 because they felt that maybe if they had been at 10, The Dark Knight would have been nominated. I feel that, however, I do feel it's the only superhero film so far that's worthy of being nominated. And you saw when Beauty and the Beast came out, it got pushed into Best Picture as well because there was finally an animated film that everyone felt was at the level and the quality that deserved for recognition. And I wish that more superhero movies, I mean, they already are bringing in a ton of money. I don't see why Christopher Nolan is the only one making them with an eye on, Oscar level quality. And of course, Heath Ledger famously won. I was nominated and won for his performance because I think that it's inarguable that his Joker, really was a pinnacle of acting ability. So basically, I think superhero films, while they push the edge of the envelope special effects wise, and that's why they're always nominated in that category, I think until they really, have stronger emotional arcs for their characters, and character development, like something like The Godfather got nominated. You're not really seeing that. I mean, and I love superhero films. I think The Avengers is fantastic. I think it's a really good movie, and I think it's the closest I've seen to approximating what it's like to read a Marvel comic book. And there's some, to some degree, I don't know if Marvel tells the kind of stories that ever could be Oscar nominated because they don't have that personal character emotional depth. But that's supposed to be DC Comics' specialty. So I hope that as they continue with their DC Cinematic Universe, that Goyer and Snyder, who I have to say I doubt their ability to deliver in this area, but they need to be working. You want that epic feel. You want a Kubrick quality. You want a Francis Ford Coppola like Apocalypse Now or Godfather. You need to see that kind of character arc and development, and the same kind of attention to detail and pushing the edge of the envelope in terms of craft and everything that you see in special effects. It would need to be done also in every other area. For instance, a lot of the shots chosen in superhero movies are exciting and fun, but not particularly artistic. I guess that's something else too. You're missing artistic and intellectual apex. You're missing that kind of level. I mean, right now you have the fun and the entertainment, the special effects, and the comedy often down in these superhero films, but you don't quite have yet the artistry. I think that, and that's why I think that's what made The Dark Knight so special. And it was like lightning in a bottle. Even Christopher Nolan, I feel, couldn't recapture it with The Dark Knight Rises. So we're gonna. I hope that more. I think Skyfall came a little bit closer to that. Sam Mendes, he's an excellent choice. So maybe if they get more directors who have been Oscar nominated before or won, they might start to get superhero movies moving in that direction as well. You need a director who thinks that way. And I do think Skyfall was worthy of a nomination for Best Picture, not only from a audience getting standpoint, but I do think artistically it was very good. And it had that emotional arc for James Wan about getting older and facing his mortality. So that's today's morning movie news. I hope you enjoyed it. Write down below any questions you might like to see answered tomorrow and any stories you want to see covered. Thanks for watching. Bye.